So give me your first and last name.
My name's Claire Alexander.
Great. And Claire, can you tell me about the craziest pandemic dream that you've had?
I wake up in the middle of the night and the sun is shining. I'm standing on the balcony and there's asteroids like falling from the sky, and there's people on other balconies and they're screaming. They're like, the world's ending, the world's ending. I was like, okay, well, if the world's ending, I'm gonna go get really drunk. And the clerk at the gas station is like, I'm sorry, we can't sell you any alcohol because it's after 9 p.m. So I bought NyQuil and I drank a lot of NyQuil. I guess I fell asleep, and then I wake up in real life and the world still feels like it's ending.
There's a tsunami coming at the dreamer, there's an earthquake happening, there are wildfires breaking out. Any crisis seems to be able to be represented by one of our kind of primally feared natural ones. I'm Deirdre Barrett. I'm a dream researcher at Harvard, and I'm the author of Pandemic Dreams and the Committee of Sleep, looking at collections of dreams from some period of history or event. Has been going on for a little more than a century. I've collected dreams from Kuwaitis after the Iraqi occupation, from Americans after 9/11, but this pandemic one is by far the biggest. Lots of people were saying they had more dream recall than usual, or their dreams were more vivid than usual, or their dreams were more bizarre than usual. There have been other bizarre images that the pandemic seems to share with most other crises.
Since the pandemic started, I've been having a lot more dreams and a lot more vivid dreams too. I've been remembering my dreams to such an amount that I bought a dream journal. My recurring dream is I'm in this kind of labyrinth, which sometimes is just one building, sometimes it's like miles long. There's this group of people that are hunting me, and I have to get out of the labyrinth in order to survive. Within the dream, I find myself in a room with a tiger. There's a bunch of people in the room, and they all think the tiger is super lovely and cuddly and really digging this tiger. And I'm like, no, guys, this is a tiger. Like, the tiger starts trying to play with me, and I start trying to get away from it. And sometimes I succeed, and sometimes it gets me, and I wake up.
Anxiety dreams and regular nightmares are basically just a dream where the main emotion is fear or anxiety, and they're almost always happening in rapid eye movement sleep. In the surveys on sleep habits, even though a lot of people said that their sleep was more disturbed, when you looked at the total sleep time, it was quite a bit more than usual. But any other crisis, you tend to sleep less. And with this one, so many people were being told just to stay at home. We know that how long a person sleeps is the single biggest correlate, because if you sleep 6 hours instead of 8, you're not getting 3/4 of your dream time. Rapid eye movement sleep gets much longer through the night. So how much you sleep makes a big difference. The remembering more dreams part, that's certainly the sleeping more. But the fact that they're skewed way toward anxiety is certainly the pandemic.
I've had hundreds of vivid dreams since the pandemic started. So this is a dream I dreamt, according to this notebook, on 12/15/2020. I was in our neighbor's house. It was Victorian styled, dark wood accents and Prussian blue walls. And there were crowds of people in the house divvying up his possessions as if he were dead. What was left were these wooden humanoid statues draped under painter's tarps on multiple stories of the house. You had to engage in misdirection so that the statues would not kidnap you. If you wanted to go upstairs, you had to actually go into the basement. Or if you wanted to go out through the front door, you had to find a way to make your way to the back door. You had to convince the statues that you really wanted to stay in the house, and then the house would allow you out. I went to the bottom of the stairs in order to get out the window of what felt like a pantry.
In rapid eye movement sleep, when most dreams are happening, our prefrontal area right behind our forehead is damped down a lot. And that's where we do all our kind of linear logic and reasoning. And that's why your thinking is not as clear. It's also where we would notice bizarre discrepancies. The secondary visual cortex, it's also active when we imagine something without seeing it. It's more active than any other time when we're dreaming. This area is not awake enough to go, wait a minute, how did I get here? There's even a difference between other nightmares that aren't just anxiety, but they're pretty overwhelming terror in the kind of nightmares you have that are not particularly related to any real trauma. When I started seeing, the awful dreams at the start of April from the US, they were disproportionately from the several big cities that got hit the worst then.
The most intense dream I had during the pandemic was a sleep paralysis attack, but this time something felt different. I was not just paralyzed. I felt like there was someone there in the room apart from me, my husband, and our dog. I couldn't make out what it was, and this thing was not at all good. It felt evil to the core. I was trying to get my husband's attention, but he was like deep in sleep. With every passing moment, I thought, this is it, my life is in danger. Then somehow I managed to kind of break free from that grasp. I moved around and I saw my dog and I was relieved and just was whew. And then my hand fell off the bed and I felt like there was another furry being out there. That's Charlie out there and there's Charlie on the bed next to me. I just woke up and I was seated in my bed, completely drenched in sweat.
Our midbrain areas associated with emotion are a little bit more active than when we're awake. While we're dreaming, dreams are more emotional on average than our waking thought. And interestingly, for women, they're elevated in sadness and anger also, and that's not true for men.
There was one time that I woke up feeling immense sadness. In my dream, I lost a very close cousin of mine, and so I remember waking up in this emotional state, just crying. I was crying in my sleep and sort of had tears around the pillow. And then I woke up also just crying and crying because it just felt so real.
I think that's partly because the secondary effects of the pandemic are hitting women even harder than men. If other family members got sick, the women did the majority of nursing care. The women are doing the majority of child care. And so the fact that they are sad and angry as well as scared, I think has more to do with the fact that the pandemic dreams are about all of those indirect effects. Post-traumatic nightmare is much more realistic than on average. It can replay an exact trauma, or it can distort it in some dreamlike way. Sometimes is what most feared rather than something that actually happened. And immediately I had some really classic post-traumatic nightmares from Italian physicians and nurses and people working in the ERs and ICUs there were having these horrible dreams that are very typical of bad trauma nightmares. And that was even more pronounced earlier in the pandemic when the ICUs were extremely overworked.
While I was in New York, I worked in the emergency department through the height of the pandemic. Kind of saw the tsunami coming. We could see it happening in Italy. Most of the ER was converted into an area for super duper sick patients, and they were just everywhere. I worked overnight and we just heard code blue after code blue after code blue, just one after the other in the hospital for the patients upstairs who were dying. In my dream, I'm at a house party, but I'm on the phone with a friend. There's lots of music, there's lots of people. I'm really excited to be at this party. I'm having a lot of fun. I realized that some kids who I knew were at the party and were sleeping by the pool are no longer there. And something told me to go to the pool, and I go to the pool and they are floating in the pool. They have drowned. In my dream, I just screamed. I just dropped to the floor and just screamed. And of course I woke up thinking about how could this have happened with all these people around?
It's normal for just pretty much 100% of those people to have trauma nightmares while it's happening and shortly after. There are psychotherapeutic interventions that can make this much less likely.
I don't think that we were collectively as physicians prepared at all for the emotional burden that this pandemic was. I have a friend who's a therapist, and we had a session every week. It was so helpful. It was super helpful, super helpful.
My therapist has been helping me sort of process those dreams and figure out how they relate to what I'm working through and dealing with in my everyday life.
I did ask a medical professional about my dreaming because I was concerned that it was a symptom of mental illness, and the response was that that was not the case.
There was another one before that as well, and it had a sort of like this hallucination element where I felt the presence of some sort of like 18th century nurse in the room talking about me to someone. So I just didn't sleep for the next few days. The smallest sounds would freak me out. I thought being in that state, like dreaming, was bad, and I don't know if something bad would happen to me if I went back there again.
The elevated anxiety should gradually subside from people's dreams.
Still experiencing vivid dreaming? Yeah, for sure. Less so, obviously, since I started working with meditation and sleep apps.
Yeah, I am still dreaming. The last dream that I had that was that severe really was back in the pandemic.
I can say April 2nd, 2020 was the last time, I hope at least.
But a certain proportion of those people will keep having the nightmare about the trauma for years after the trauma has happened, and potentially for the rest of their life.
I've slept poorly probably 1/3 to half the nights in the week for the last 6 months or more. It's like having your shirt stuck in the door and you close the door and then you keep walking, and then in a second you're gonna get pulled right back. It's like that.